Hello, welcome to episode 2 of the FraudCast, which, actually forgot to mention that was going to be the podcast's name last time. You know, usually when naming something, I'd, take a moment to ask people, see what they think, but that kind of came to me, while I was deciding what to call it, and it was the first thing that came up, so I was like, you know what, fuck it, whatever. And, actually for this episode, we voted on a very interesting topic. At least, maybe not a lot of people find it interesting or will find it interesting, but we're going to talk about, a certain video game franchise, and specifically the Sonic franchise, because, well, pretty much everyone knows who Sonic is, and is at least a little familiar with the franchise. If you're not familiar with the shows or the games, I'm sure you've seen the movies, like the trailers out on theaters. It would be really fucking surprising if you didn't, because then that just means you've been living under a rock. So, especially after Sonic 3, because the third movie, I feel like everyone was talking about it, and everyone was, posting clips of it, and everyone was, putting their reviews out there. So if you haven't watched it for yourself, or haven't watched any of the shows, played any of the games, even in your childhood, I feel like you need to get out there and explore a little more, because what are you doing? Okay, this is probably also not going to be a very long episode, since I'm actually not quite sure what I could talk about. I mean, I could talk about, the franchise as a whole, how the fans are, stuff like that, and starting off, I personally was never really a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. He was there for a bit of my childhood. He was a character that I knew about. It's just some of the older cartoons, that used to get dubbed and, aired on TV, would come up, and I'd watch those occasionally, and I would always find them kind of stupid, or, just not my type of thing, because they seem to me, I don't know why, but a core memory in my head reminds me of Tom and Jerry every time I would watch them, and it just didn't appeal to me as much, and I was like, I'd much rather watch Tom and Jerry than, Sonic the Hedgehog, but, eventually, I, with Sonic Boom, actually, I came to be a little more familiar, because that show I actually watched and enjoyed when it aired on TV. Obviously, I watched it in whichever dub that I watched it in, and unfortunately, I think the English version is just peak. I think it's so much funnier or better in general than, obviously, whichever dub it may come to. I feel like the originals are always better when it comes to TV shows, whether it's a Japanese anime or an English cartoon. It's I feel like the original is always better. Because you're not gonna be able to translate all the jokes, all the dialogue correctly without needing to, change a few things at least, every once in a while. And I feel like it's gonna affect the overall experience, and you got the voice actors and the expressions and the censorship and all that stuff is gonna change from region to region. So it's really difficult to keep the overall series exactly the same. So naturally I think the English version is better now that I'm all grown up and shit. But as a child, wasn't really familiar with the games, wasn't really into the games. I had an old PlayStation 2 that I think I honestly do not remember if there were any Sonic games on PlayStation at all, throughout its lifetime. And I should probably search that up real quick, but I don't think so. I remember I had a CD for a Sonic game, and it was a really old one, so naturally I didn't exactly have any other consoles other than the old Atari and the PS2. I didn't use the PS3, I grew up on the PS2 only, and then I spent a good portion of my life without video games and just focusing more on real hobbies. Wait, that's kind of controversial. Okay, not I'm not saying playing games isn't a real hobby. I mean more physical hobbies like drawing, painting, ice skating, horse riding, all that stuff. And then I brought a PS4 like way later than everybody else did, and I kind of caught up with video games again. And here I am. But back then, I remember having a Sonic game on CD, and I do not remember which Sonic game it is, and I'm not sure if it was on the PS2. And if it wasn't, I honestly have no fucking idea why I would have a game CD for a console that I didn't have. So give me a second to go check that real quick. Okay, yeah, upon further research, there were actually a lot of... I keep forgetting that it's not Nintendo. Oh my god. Because in my brain, characters like Sonic and Mario are so, like, classic and so just, together, when you think of them as, like, yeah, video games. And I keep forgetting that Sonic is nowhere near Nintendo. And it's like, it just confused me. So, yeah, there were a ton of old Sonic games on, like, the PS1, PS2, hold on, I misspoke. There were no Sonic games on the PS1, according to this person. The PS2 has Sonic Heroes, Shadow, Sonic Riders 1 and 2, and a port of Unleashed. Dang, okay, so Sonic only caught up to the PS2, apparently, okay, that would make sense with my story. I have no idea which one of these games I had, though. Okay, regardless of which one I had, even then, I never played that one because the PlayStation 2 had this really bad problem with CDs. I'm not sure if it was a problem with my console or if everybody's PlayStation 2 had this problem, or if it was just the CDs that I would be buying, like maybe they were sketchy or some shit. But if you remember, they didn't always come in, like the plastic casing. No, they would come in like paper and plastic. It was like a plastic bag with a poster, with a paper poster of the game, and it would encase the CD. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it was the CD's fault, like if it was scratched while it was inside the case, because it's not protected like at all, and it's constantly moving around in the plastic, and it would actually, now that I think about it, it's very likely that it's the CD. But yeah. Every time you would put in a CD that didn't work, or bought a new CD and you would put it in, and I swear to God, it would be like we would sit down as children and have a like whole ritual to pray that the CD we brought wasn't ruined and that the game would actually work by the time we made it back home. And it would be so fragile and just, you had to treat this thing with absolute care, and then if it didn't work, then we would lose our shit and try everything from like the 5-minute craft hack to fix your phone after a broken screen. Like we would put it in rice, we would wash it with toothpaste. It was a bunch of silly shit, but regardless, right? So Sonic, really nice character. Actually, I wonder where they got the idea for him to be a hedgehog. I don't... Yeah, no, Sonic was always supposed to be a hedgehog. I wonder where the fuck they got the idea of a blue hedgehog, but then I remember that, shit like Pokemon exists, and you've seen how those guys look like. It's honestly crazy how some people can be creative with their character designs, and the Sonic the Hedgehog, designs and official art is so distinct. Like you could see something from the franchise and immediately know and say like, hey, that kind of looks like a Sonic character. And you would probably be right, because that's what, like, they have a distinct look to them. Their character design, they're all animals, of course. Actually, now that I mentioned that, I have no idea where the furries stand in terms of Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't think I've ever seen, like, a furry associate themselves with Sonic completely. Surprisingly, I'm sure a lot of them are fans of the series or the franchise, but I've never seen any of them, like, take it to the next level where you'd see some crazy shit like you've seen from the My Little Pony fans. the fucking Rainbow Dash jar and shit. But, regardless. Okay, why don't we take a look at the characters of the franchise? Because, everyone has their favorites among this whole roster. I feel like the most popular ones are obviously Sonic and Shadow for just how iconic they are in a way. I find it very rare to see people who like really niche characters. Okay, never mind. I wouldn't say rare. There are these couple fans in like every fandom. It doesn't it's not even exclusive to Sonic the Hedgehog. It's in every fandom where if there's a lot of characters, there's always going to be that one fan that's going to diss you regardless of who your favorite character is, just because it's not super unknown or super disliked. Like, they're going to like the most niche character in the franchise, say Honey the Cat. Like, no, some people don't even know that character exists, right? And then she's going to diss you and curse your entire bloodline and family just because you either don't know this character or just don't like this character or it's not your favorite. Like, it's so what if the most favorite or the most popular is the protagonist or the main antagonist? It really doesn't matter. I hate people like that. But yeah, obviously Sonic and Shadow are people's most favorite. We're not going to be talking about ships. Okay, we're not. At least I'm not. I refuse to talk about the ships. Because, shipping in a fandom is kind of like asking for a death wish, It's, if you like something, if you like a ship, you might as well keep it to yourself. It doesn't matter what it is or where it's from, okay? Like, if you want to ship the hedgehogs, then you're gonna have to keep it to yourself if you want to, keep yourself safe and not be doxxed on the internet. Anyway, all right, we have side characters as well. We have Sonic's friends, obviously Tails, Amy, Knuckles, classics. There's also characters like Blaze and Silver, which honestly I'm not that familiar with. It's like, what I'm getting is that they're more into like lore related stuff and they're a lot more visible in comics. I don't think I've seen them I've never, Blaze. I've never seen Blaze in a game. There's no Sonic game that I've played which I saw Blaze in, which is sad because I really like her character design. Or Big the cat for that matter. I don't think I've ever seen him in a game. Not that I remember, anyway. Charmy. I think I've seen Charmy like twice. Maximum. I don't remember. Some of these characters are not that memorable or just, they don't show up a lot. And that's understandable, to be honest, because they are side characters. But you got characters like Tails and Amy, which show up in most games. Obviously, Knuckles. Rouge shows up with Shadow a lot. I'm not sure about that. I feel like Shadow shows up a lot more than Rouge does. But whenever Rouge does, it has some kind of connection to Shadow, because they're kind of a duo. I'm actually not that familiar with that concept either. I'm talking about a fandom that I'm just now starting to get familiar with. This is kind of it is confusing in a way. Like, characters like Vector pissed me off for a while because I didn't know where they played part in the franchise. Which is sad because I like Vector. And yeah, characters like Espio. Yeah, honestly, I feel like a lot of these characters, there's so many of them and they're so underutilized, but they show up where they're supposed to. I feel like it would be nice if more of them showed up as like maybe NPCs. Like, you got characters from the comics. A character I'd like to see in more games that I feel like I don't even know if she showed up in any of them. Sally. I don't think I've seen Sally like at all, or heck, I don't even think she's talked about. Like, you have characters like Rouge or Blaze that show up sometimes, but they're decently talked about in the fandom or the community. But then characters, like Sally, they almost never show up, which is so upsetting because the character designs are all so unique and so nice, and I feel like I want to see these little guys in action a lot more than they actually are. Okay, I will be taking them one by one and seeing what I think of them, and obviously we have to start with Sonic. He's I mean, he's your average protagonist. I feel like he's a lot closer to a blueprint for a lot of the current newer protagonists in games or just like media in general. He's got your average determination to like be the good guy and always save everyone, and he's like this laid back, cool, calm, collected, most of the time at least, like confident kind of protagonist. At least that's, this is all my interpretation. Obviously the class clown kind of jokester. Reminds me a lot of the guy in class that would like try to make everyone laugh, and then whenever people wouldn't laugh, you would just awkwardly sit there. He gives off that vibe to me. I don't think I would change anything about him in general. I like him. I like him as a character. He's nice, design classic. We don't need to talk much here. He's just a blue hedgehog. Everybody knows this guy, like genuinely, like I said earlier, it's weird if I ever see someone who is unfamiliar with Sonic, because you've seen him at least somewhere, some time in your life. There's no way that you haven't. It's like saying you've never seen Mario before. Like, you're lying if you say you've never seen Mario, because that's just no way. Matter of fact, I think it's more likely that you've seen Sonic than it is that you've seen Mario, because if you think about it, Sonic has been in like multiple movies, which Mario's only appeared in one, and I think Sonic's movies made a lot more money than the Mario movie did, so yeah, that's one character out of the way. Tails, again, average sidekick character, but I feel like Tails is a little more different than regular sidekicks, because when I think of a sidekick, it's like they're friends with the protagonist, but they're constantly overlooked, while Tails is not, A sidekick is like what Robin is to Batman, unless they go off and do their own independent thing or have their own big event, they remain a sidekick, the whole stay in the shadow of the protagonist kind of thing. That's a sidekick, but Tails is more like his own very prominent character that you kind of cannot ignore, If you manage to ignore Tails, I think that is a talent, It's, count how many times I say during this episode. I dare you. Anyway, Tails is, heck, Sonic can be dependent on Tails in a lot of situations, and he has been. Tails is the brains, and Sonic is kind of the action, and Knuckles, when we get to him, he's gonna like be the muscle of the group, and that's kind of the dynamic we saw in the movies as well, which is a nice dynamic. I like how you cannot ignore Tails, despite him being this little fox character who can very well be seen as a sidekick, but is a lot more important than an average sidekick. And I really like Tails. I think he was my favorite during my childhood, because I really liked side characters in my childhood, and especially yellow-themed characters. I don't know why. Like, I really liked Fluttershy in My Little Pony. So, starting then, I feel like there was a theme for yellow side characters, but yeah, that's for Tails. Now, for Knuckles, he's kind of the muscles of the group. Sometimes he's stupid, sometimes he's not. He's kind of this... sometimes he's a comic relief, and sometimes he's not. In Sonic Boom, I remember him being a comic relief, but in the games, he's a lot more... and in the movies, in the movies, kind of like a mix, he's part of the group, very important part of the group, but at the same time, he has his funny moments, and I feel like that's him in general, although in the games, he feels a lot more serious than he was in the shows. And honestly, I'm not sure how to feel about, like, I don't know where he came from or where they could have possibly gotten the idea of a character like him to put in the group. Although I do kind of think it would make sense for there to be a all bronze character where it's like, yeah, I'm the muscle kind of guy. Uh, Although usually it's brains and bronze. So when you think of that, or maybe that's just in my head, when I think of that, it's like Tails and Knuckles, or like Tails and Sonic. It like one of these three don't fit in the whole brains and bronze thing in my head, and I'm not sure what Sonic would be if it was a trio. Like, Speed is cool and all, but it doesn't exactly fit. That's just a side thought that I have sometimes about this trio specifically. But I like Knuckles. He's funny. Uh I don't know if he's replaceable. Like, I don't know. I heard someone say he's replaceable. I was scrolling through the vast networks of the internet, and I saw a lot of people who were not a fan of Knuckles for some reason. I like Knuckles, I don't understand people who don't like Knuckles. He's a good character, he's a good friend. Sometimes he may be a little confused, but he's a nice character. Now, I know that if a certain amount of people may be waiting to hear about Amy, I'm waiting to talk about Amy because she's the girl of the group, obviously. Now, I have a lot to say about Amy, actually. And the first thing is about why she's called Amy. Apparently, she's only called Amy because she's a girl. You got Tails called Tails because he's got multiple tails. You got Sonic called Sonic because he's, fast. And you got Knuckles. He's Knuckles because he punches shit. And then Amy is Amy because she's a girl. I think the only other thing that could possibly justify that is her second name, Amy Rose, which is because she's pink. And that would be closer to Tails being called Tails because he's got multiple tails. I really cannot justify her being called Amy. But you know what? That's not a complaint. That really isn't. It's just a funny thought that she was only called that because she was a girl. But, design-wise, it's a little more less creative. Clearly she was added into the series to be a love interest for Sonic. I'm not even gonna try to deny and say, she's her own character. And she is, sure, but that's, way later, She was added into the series to be a love interest. You can kind of tell when a love interest is there for that specific purpose. And you can see it in a lot of franchises, not just the Sonic franchise. And a lot more in anime, too, not just in games. When a character walks in and it's like, yep, that character right there is supposed to be a love interest to the main protagonist. And what conflicts me about Amy as a love interest, and that's probably the only thing that conflicts me about her, is that usually the love interest dynamic between, the two sides is that they both like each other, but do not say so. On the other hand, Amy is she is extremely expressive about her love for Sonic sometimes. She does not hold back, so she's very obvious about it and doesn't bother to hide the fact that she has feelings for Sonic. And what confused me even as a child is that for some reason, Sonic does not always seem to reciprocate those feelings. It's it's so confusing, because as a kid, it's love is a very simple thing. Two people like each other. And if one person likes one person, then the other person in the show or the cartoon is probably going to like that person back. But Sonic never showed it, as much as Amy did. And I was so confused seeing that. It's what the heck? I thought you were supposed to be, lovey-dovey and awkward sometimes. But that never happened, It was so confusing. Although I do think it's refreshing, it's nice to not just see the old like, oh, I like this girl and this girl likes me, but I'm too shy to talk to her. Like, I feel like that's boring. It's getting, or at least it's getting boring. It's so overused. You see it in cartoons and anime all the fucking time. Either that, or if the protagonist is a girl, you would find the male love interest to be like this charming guy who she just thinks is out of her league, and that's so boring. It's the worst, okay? I like when it's an interesting dynamic, and somehow, these two have that. I like that it's not just straightforward and super overdone. They got some unique features to them. And as for, her design, it's like we said, she's very girl. She was put out there to be girl. It's not, even the creators themselves didn't bother trying to change anything. Like, we need a girl character, and they made a girl character, like, they didn't bother trying to make her and seem independent or like strong or like sassy, or no, they didn't do that. They may have done that with Rouge, they may have done that with Sally, they may have done that with fucking, I don't know, other female characters. They even had diversity in character with Cream. Like, they made Cream a really good child character. And Amy was girl. That is the best way I can describe Amy to just about anybody. And speaking of which, a very big concern of mine for the upcoming movie is how they're going to introduce her into the movie. Because obviously you do not want her to be super out there. Because she wasn't always, like, the whole deal, but just being Sonic's love interest and being all over him and shit. Like, it wasn't always like that for Amy. I mean, again, in the shows, Boom, for example, she wasn't always like that. She tries to be independent, thinks that a girl should, be just as good as a boy and shit like that, trying to break the whole dynamic and the stereotypes, but I don't know if that's what they're gonna do in the movie, and honestly, it's a little worrying, because, like, you should let her crush on Sonic. It's her whole deal. I don't want to make her this strong, independent woman character that we have nowadays. That's also kind of overdone. A girl character like Amy can have her feelings without letting her feelings get in the way of, what she might want to do, or what she thinks is the right thing to do in conflict or in a dangerous situation. I don't want her to go out of her way for Sonic all the time. But let her have the feelings she's always had. I feel like that would be the perfect or the better way to approach Amy in the movie. But that's just my opinion, and honestly, we'll just have to wait and see how they treat her in the movie. Now, characters like Cream. I actually like Cream. I like Cream a lot, Usually, some people don't even design child characters, because they like to avoid, they like to avoid them for obvious reasons, let's just be honest. But I like Cream. I like Cream a lot. I don't know what her deal is in the story. I do know how her character is and how her personality is. And honestly, I'm a little sad with how familiar I am with her, because it's pretty much not at all. I just know of her existence. I really like her design. Very obviously a child. It's great. Cream is well-rounded overall. Yeah, there's not really much to say about here, other than the fact that I like Cream. And moving on to characters like Big, Vector, Espio. I like Espio. I think Espio's interesting. I don't know why, but Espio seems like the less popular version of Shadow, who's more with the good guys than he is with the bad guys. And I don't know why. I think it's his vibe that's kind of like, independent and like reliable at the same time. That's kind of the vibe you get from Shadow, except Shadow just doesn't like Sonic, and he's the antagonist, but that's not the case with Espio. And then there's characters like Charmy, when honestly, I kid you not, I don't know why. I know as much about Charmy than I know about Cream, which is jack shit pretty much. But I do not like Charmy. This is purely because of design. I think Charmy's supposed to be a bee. But yeah, it's terrible. I do not like bees. I do not like little flying characters. Every time I see a character with a tiny body who can fly, I immediately characterize them as annoying. Don't ask me why, okay? I do not know what Charmy had ever done in the series. I don't know what significance he's had in the series, but I don't like Charmy specifically for his design. It's just a no for me, okay? I don't like bees, I don't like tiny characters who can fly, and Charmy is both of those things, okay? Now, moving on to Silver and Blaze. I like Silver. I feel like Silver isn't talked about nearly as much as he should be. He's, again, a hedgehog like Sonic and Shadow. And obviously some people recognize him, and they call the three, the SSS duo or whatever. I feel like that stands for something and that I shouldn't say it. Hold on. Let me search that up and make sure it's not problematic. Okay, yeah, no, the first thing that pops up when you search up SSS is the Republic of the Philippines Social Security System. Okay, I don't think we should bother with that right now. Right, so, what I know about Silver is that he's kind of like a fourth wall-breaking character, I think. I'm honestly not sure. Again, I'm not very familiar with the lore. I just like the characters, okay? I'm into Sonic because I like the characters and I think they're silly and I think the fandom's fun and I like it's wholesome in there. I like it, and that's literally the only reason I'm there. I am trying to get a little more familiar with the games because I'm honestly not. I feel like I've played very few and I don't get the hate for some of them. But we'll get to that later, because there's a specific game I want to talk about in the franchise. I feel like a lot of the games are just, well talked about, except for very few that just have terrible reviews on them for some reason, and I do not understand why those specific games have that review, but, yeah, Silver, character design-wise, I like the whole, color scheme they have going on. I'm not sure why they chose a white and blue color scheme for Silver. It honestly seems like he's just the complete opposite of Shadow, which is funny, because if you gave me the choice, if I had no idea what any of them were, or if I had no recollection of what the characters do or play out in the story, I would think Silver is the main character, and that Shadow was his antagonist, and that Sonic was a side character, just because of the color schemes alone. Shadow and Silver have completely different, opposite colors. Shadow is red and black, Silver is blue and white. It's kind of funny, And then Sonic, the only odd one out, the just blue one, is the main character of the series. But, anyway. Right, I did talk about Blaze earlier. I like the fact that, obviously, she's a cat, and we don't have that. We have, Espio's a chameleon, Charmy is a bee, Vector's a crocodile, we do have another cat. Big is a cat. Sometimes I forget Big is a cat because of his big-ass ears. We got rabbits, all kinds of hedgehogs, and Echidna. Actually, is an Echidna a hedgehog? I have no idea. I don't know what Knuckles is exactly supposed to be. To me, it's just another type of hedgehog. Tails is a fox, and I like the fact that Blaze is a cat. Well, she's actually, in terms of character design, again, like Silver, she's okay. Actually, unlike Silver, Silver just seems like a kind of contrast to the other two hedgehogs. But Blaze is I feel like she's the most unique in terms of character design. Oh, yeah, as well as Rouge. These two, I feel like they were just taken out to the side and just, I don't know. For some reason, the design is out of the ordinary when it comes to the other characters. Maybe that's just because I'm looking at all of them, like, side by side. But her tail, like, her hair, the head shape, it's all different. And I'm not sure if it's because she's a cat or because of something else, but I really like her design more than anything. And apparently, she's supposed to just be a version of Sonic from another dimension or something. Um, which is cool, she's a girl, which is already off about her being Sonic from another dimension. Obviously in the fact she's not a hedgehog, and the fact that she's strong. She's not just there. I honestly have no idea how else to comment on Blaze, other than the fact that I just really like her character design. That's probably my favorite thing about her. Also, I like the little thing on her forehead. It's very pleasing to look at. Right, Shadow, Rouge, and the robot guy, whose name I'm not going to say, because that's a bunch of letters and numbers. I feel like I'm reading Elon Musk's son's name. Oh yeah, and Dr. Eggman. Though I'm not sure what, Shadow and Rouge and the robot guy have in common that made them a team, or like a trio of some kind. And by the way, I don't know if other people have said this often enough, but Shadow and Rouge remind me so much of Team Rocket's dynamic, just because of, I don't know, they just seem really Jesse and James to me. But regardless, and the robot guy is probably the little cat. Right, and then I've already talked about Shadow's and Rouge's design. I feel like, Rouge is the kind of character you've seen rarely, but often enough to recognize it. There's always that female character that's kind of like mysterious and shows up out of nowhere. The kind of, and they're always emo. It's kind of like Blackfire from Teen Titans. I have no idea if anyone has made that connection before, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. That one female character who every little girl looked up to and thought was really cool and mysterious. I'm sure a lot of maybe that's just me, I'm talking about myself here. I have no idea if other little girls saw Rouge and were like, oh my god, she's so cool, she's a bat, and I want to be like her when I grow up. But she's feminine, she's strong. It's not exactly like Amy. Obviously, Amy is just supposed to be the nice, happy-go-lucky kind of love interest girl, and Rouge is a bad guy, And I feel like the reason any little girls might think Rouge is cool at all is because she's a bad guy. Bad guys have always been cool during childhood, and if you didn't think bad guys were cool during your childhood, then your childhood was probably lame. I probably wouldn't want to be friends with you, because I thought bad guys were the coolest as a kid. Right. Except bad guys who were like Eggman, because I hated that motherfucker. Even as a child, I thought he was super annoying. I thought his mustache was ugly. I thought his dumbass goggles should just be pulled off from his head and placed right back on his eyes so that I wouldn't have to look at his googly eyes. Right, yeah, no. His whole deal, just being a evil scientist, didn't appeal to me. Obviously now that's changed. I like all the Sonic characters, very nice, very, classic. I feel like I can't really hate on them. I feel like hating on a Sonic character just feels immature, it's just a bunch of animals, and they're just doing their thing, okay? They're fighting their wars, they're beating up their robots. I feel like it would just be embarrassing to hate on any Sonic character whatsoever. You often see it, people hating on others for liking a Sonic character, or liking a certain one, or having one be their favorite, but you've never seen them hate on that character specifically. It's always like, oh, why is that one your favorite? This one should be your favorite because they're just so much better. But again, they're both immature, but for some reason people prefer to do one and just forget about the other because somehow that's the most embarrassing one. Anyway, I kid you not, the description for Eggman is Dr. Eggman is a devious, evil scientist who invents mini machines. Like, yeah, no shit, we've seen all of those. A little too many machines, as a matter of fact. I feel like it's an annoying amount of machines, okay? That's just how much I didn't like him. Now he's just kind of sad to look at. He feels like a sad old man who's just trying to get his way for once, and it just isn't going well. It feels like his whole deal is just having a bad day every single day. And that is sad, okay? That is a sad, sad thing. Right. A honorable mention that is not on this list for some reason is Metal Sonic. And I wanted to mention Metal Sonic because it reminds me a lot of another character from a different show. If anyone has ever seen Adventure Time completely, there was a character called Fern. And it's a very unique kind of character, but a character that I like to see. They were both like born, or like they both came in thinking that they were the protagonist, that at least I think that was the case for Metal Sonic. I'm not 100% sure, but it's the kind of idea where they think they're either Sonic or Finn, but they're not, and they're fully convinced in their head that this is supposed to be them, but it's not, and they have to live with that fact, I can't possibly imagine the complication of being in such a situation. Can you imagine seeing you, but someone else? It's like having a double and then having that double take your entire life away from you. I feel like that's just a really tragic thing to experience. And I like Metal Sonic for that. Design-wise, obviously, he's a robot, if you couldn't fucking tell from the name. I do like his design a lot, maybe even more than most characters, surprisingly. Like, I like his design more than, Silver's, I think. I'm really fond of Metal Sonic. I like the fact that they didn't just make him a complete replica of Sonic and then just added some, like, mechanical parts. Like, no, he's a different character, all on his own. So yeah, that's pretty much my outlook on most, or, like, the most important Sonic characters. As a franchise, I feel like Sonic has just become so engraved in video games in general. It's kind of hard not to think video games and then not just think of classics like Sonic and Mario and Zelda and shit like more popular or modern games. Heck, they don't even have to be modern to be recognized, like games like Skyrim or God of War, or, more open world. There's so many things you can think about when you think of video games, but Sonic is definitely in there, and you kind of cannot remove that or ever change that, because, it's made its mark. I don't know what else I could say. I wanted to cover the hate on a certain game, and that's Sonic Forces. I played that game, actually. Surprisingly, again, I didn't play most Sonic games, but I have played Forces. And I really liked it for some reason. I liked the whole create your own character thing, and I believe a lot of people did as well. And when I read the reviews, a lot of the people were mad about the repetitive, like, sequence of levels, or how levels were designed, or how easy they were, and I feel like that's really not a problem. I think they just didn't like the execution. The story was nice, Eggman taking over, Sonic was defeated and shit like that. I feel like that is a very decent plot to base a Sonic game from. But I think most people were mad at the execution, and I'm not sure if it's because I've just never played the rest of the Sonic games that I'm not too familiar with why people are upset. Maybe I should be, but I personally liked the game. I feel like rather than just focusing on what the other games did or focusing on what you didn't like about the game, you just play the game, you finish it, and you rate it for yourself. There's no reason to trash on it or say or compare that, oh, other games were better, or at least that's just my take on it. You could compare. I mean, you could, but like obviously there's going to be a lot more games that are better than the ones you don't like. And that's just inevitable regardless of what game you play. Not every game is going to be your forte, and honestly, I think I like most games I play. There's rarely a game I play where I have so many complaints to the fact that I would have to leave a negative review on said game, and I liked Forces, so I have nothing else to say about that. I think I'm gonna end the episode here. This is a very, personal opinion kind of episode. Next episode is going to be a little more generalized, I believe. Um, but this is episode 2 of the FraudCast, and I'm gonna head out. Bye-bye.